I'm going to explain a couple of stories that may have made your head explode. But if you understand the Rosetta Stone of today's world, the Great Reset, you will understand and you will see how close it is coming for you. Last night, I was on the plane and I was coming home from meeting with legislators about the Great Reset and ESG. And like every other person that I have met, they knew very little about it. And if you don't understand this, this is the knockout punch. This is the knockout punch. And I have yet to walk into a room of people who really know what ESG even means. The ESG standards are environmental, social justice, and governance. And it will change everything in your life. Now, let me explain the Remington story, and you will understand. I'm going to give you a couple stories that'll blow your mind. You will get it. Okay. Remington Arms. They were sued by the Sandy Hook parents. Now, we know the gun is not responsible. It's not responsible for killing. Guns don't kill people. People use guns or they use baseball bats. And any gun company will fight this one all the way to the Supreme Court. Why? Because if the gun company can be held responsible, well, then they're going to probably go out of business. And I'll explain that in a second. Okay? Everybody will say they'll be more responsible. No, they won't. They will go out of business. I'll tell you why. So yesterday, Remington Arms reached a settlement worth $73 million with the families of victims killed in the Sandy Hook elementary school shooting. Now, when I first heard that, I said, excuse me, what? They reached a settlement? How? Why would Remington do that? Didn't make any sense. Until I got, to a lower altitude as we were landing, and I could Google the board of Remington Arms, because my initial thought was, who have they put on the board that is a great resetter? Who have they put on the board of Remington Arms? And I found out then there is no Remington Arms. They're out of business. Okay, they're defunct. They were broken up into a bunch of little companies. And my next question was, then oh my gosh. Who settled? The insurance companies settled. Now, what do we know about the insurance companies? The Great Reset, the gun argument. Well, we know that the government and the financial institutions in New York for sure, but it has been happening elsewhere, but out in the open in New York, they have been pressuring banks, don't do business with any gun companies. Because that'll make us have to look into you guys, because maybe you're not trustworthy, because we think there's some things wrong with gun companies. Okay, so the financial sector started to do this before ESG. But they also pressured the insurance companies. This is too big of a risk on you. Stop insuring these people and you will stop gun manufacturing and sales. So now $73 million has been settled by the insurance companies. Anybody who believes in the Second Amendment would have fought that to the Supreme Court and would have won. This can't be reversed now because it's a settlement. You can't bring it to the Supreme Court. So what does it mean? It doesn't mean more litigation for other gun companies. It means that now insurance companies have to look at every gun company and say, are we willing to risk this? Because they're all going to be brought into court and we may have to settle. We may have to, staff up our attorneys for anyone who's ever been killed by a gun. First of all, gun companies, your rates for insurance have just gone through the roof. Gun stores, your insurance is going to go through the roof. If they even insure you. And ESG is saying no to insurance. That is what's happening. This is an end run around the Second Amendment. It was settled by insurance companies. Insurance companies are being leaned on by the government and the banks and ESG not to do any business. They've just allowed the rates to go through the roof and an excuse on why they can't insure gun companies or gun stores. Guarantee you that's what that story is about. Another story that broke yesterday. Big oil and the climate crisis, the fight to hold PR firms accountable. So do you remember last year the House had a hearing where they brought in all of the oil guys. They're like, "What have you done for global warming? Because you're just setting the whole planet on fire." Remember that? Well, what's her name? Rhymes with baloney. Carolyn Maloney. She is the chair of the Committee on Oversight and Reform. At the end of that, she issued subpoenas to ExxonMobil, Chevron, BP America, Shell, and the American Petroleum Institute, also, strangely, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, for documents. And the documents were regarding climate, including marketing, advertising, and public relations material. Now, here's the story in Bloomberg. See if any of this is answered with the Great Reset. Campaigners say this step foreshadows a showdown between lawmakers and PR executives, with the latter expected to be called on as witnesses to the fossil fuel industry's climate disinformation campaign. The industry's climate disinformation campaign. You hear how Bloomberg is already phrasing this? If you're against global warming, you are engaged in a disinformation campaign. I go back to the Department of Homeland Security. What's the biggest threat of terrorism? People who are engaged in disinformation campaigns. All you need to say to anybody who's astute, your company is engaged in a disinformation campaign. And you're like, no, I'm just a PR company. We handle everyone. Well, do you? The reason they've been, quoting the article, the reason PR companies have been so invisible for so many years is by design. Their strategic power has come from remaining behind the scenes. And I think that's one reason we have mistakenly see these firms as neutral. Wow. Okay. So now a PR firm, you better be careful who you take on as a client, or you will be deemed disinformation. You better be careful, not as an insurance company, to take on gun companies, because you could be sued. And if you do, I'm not sure the bank is going to give your company a loan, because you're entering risky territory by insuring these people. It's probably a bad bet. This is the Great Reset. This is not capitalism. Anyone who says this is capitalism, you need to tell them firmly, no, this, in their own words, is to destroy and replace capitalism. This is fascism. This is not the free market. These are people who believe they know better, and they lean on people. You're going to do it our way, or you're going to be out. Let me give you one more story. And I can't find it. That sucks. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry, because I'm looking at the deal and I'm seeing one that just says avocados. And I'm like, what is that? Okay, avocados. Avocados have now been stopped because somebody in inspections was yelled at by a Mexican as they were inspecting and it was so bad, it went all the way to the White House. This guy was yelled at and treated poorly and unfairly. And so the White House said, hey, you better not treat our inspectors and say naughty things to them. We're stopping all avocado imports. That's literally what they say it's caused by. A spat between a Mexican and a U.S. government official. Really? Really? The president of Mexico says, no, that's not it. We can't sell avocados to the United States until we bend our will to Joe Biden on environmental issues. That one makes a little more sense than, oh, Dad, he called me a name. This is fascism.